What are you monitoring with regards to like commodities as well? There's a show we want to make at one point discussing essentially commodity wars. So we had Lynn Alden, I mentioned on the show. We had her on a couple of months ago. We did a show called Currency Wars, talking about the future of currency wars. And then bang, a fucking war kicks off and we're essentially in a currency war. And we're in people are using the financial system as a weapon of war alongside bombs and propaganda. We've now got a financial war. And then we got her back on the other day to discuss like the reality of what's happening. But it feels like we're going into like commodity wars now. It's like, well, who controls what energy production where and what are the implications of that? How much of that are you tracking?
A good amount. I mean, first off, how great is Lynn Alden?
She is the fucking best.
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, she was, and I should have paid more attention. She was a loud commodities bull. And, obviously, like, who could have predicted a war, but...
Do you get a newsletter?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A premium subscriber, no doubt.
$199 a year.
It's ridiculously cheap.
So I just interrupt. So I put that as a tweet a couple of years ago because people are fucking ragging on me for the show. And I was like, listen, there's 3 types of podcasts. There's a smart person, a moron, and a smart person, and 2 morons. I said, my show is a moron and a smart person. I'm cool with that. But with Lynn Alden, that's our biggest spread.
Yeah, Lynn is fantastic. I mean... she's been documenting it out. I listened to Peter Zihan. He's an expert, kind of global macroeconomist. Definitely not going to say I'm some commodities expert, but I definitely follow it just to understand kind of the implications of what's happening. And part of the reason that, I guess notably like bearish on the legacy system and warning of somewhat of a liquidity crunch, deleveraging, is just looking at previous recession periods and what's happened leading up to that with energy prices, commodities. There's a real big impact on kind of the consumer balance sheet, on corporate margins, on just a slowdown in the economy in general. Last time we saw an energy prices rip like this was leading up to the Great Financial Crisis. And obviously there was kind of a contagion in subprime. But all of this kind of commodity shortage, right? Like the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, the implications of that are massive. Russia produces, off the top of my head, I think 15% of the world's natural gas, like 40% of that goes to Europe. I mean, what's the prices at the pump in where you live? Nuts.
Hold my fucking beer. People here like putting photographs up of $5, $6 a gallon. And I'm like, okay, let's do the maths. How many liters per gallon? We're paying this.
Isn't it like 10?
$10. Yeah. Well, it's actually more now.
Yeah.
It's over $10. I mean, when I left, my car's usually about £80 to fill up. When I left, it's the first time I ever went over 100. It was actually, I remember the number, it was £100 and 13 pence. I was like, fucking hell, I'm over like £100. And now when I get back, it's going to be like £120.
Yep.
It's fucking insane. And look, I don't mean to be a dick about this. Like, okay, I can afford to do it, but, and I'm not doing this as a flex or to look down on people, but I know there are people where this materially affects them, where they're going to have to make a decision. It's like, shit, can I afford to fill my car up? Do I now have to get a bus to work? Like this real, and we were speaking to Nick Carter, and Nick Carter said, humans flourish when commodity prices are low.
Yep.
For obvious reasons.
Yep. And so, I mean, part of this, the crazy thing is, and why the, policymakers are so trapped is we're seeing broad-based inflation, but it's not really a result of monetary policy. I mean, I guess you could backtrack it and say it's a result of multiple decades of monetary policy. But right now, the inflation is because we have a commodity shortage, commodities across the board, energy, and now like the knockoff effects of, say, like natural gas, Russia's natural gas supply being cut off. Well, that happens to produce fertilizer. And so now we're going to see essentially food shortages all over the world in the third, fourth quarter. Like, not meant to be dark, but this is just the reality that we're facing. And so it's basic supply and demand. What happens? Prices go up. There's going to be not enough food. There's going to be not enough energy. People are going to have to cut back. And so a recession is not even really a result of like the financial conditions. It's a result of a shortage of real goods. And so when that happens, what's policymakers like with COVID say? Everybody got locked down. There was a demand shock, or really a lack of demand, right? So they could throw a bunch of money at people. Oil went negative because there was like all the reserves were full, right? So they threw a bunch of money at people. It was relatively fine. You could buy your services, you could buy your goods. There was inflation, but there was such a lack of demand that you could make up for it. Well, the supply chains kind of got shattered because of that. And now economy's kind of heating up, going back into full swing. We throw this war in the mix, along with just the trillions of dollars that were printed. And now there's a huge shortage of all the stuff that we need. And throw like, Putin, I think, whether it's strategic or not, there's huge implications of the West just boycotting all of Russia's exports. They produce so many precious metals, they produce natural gas, energy. And so really we're looking at kind of a bleak outlook over the coming 6 to 12 months, maybe further. And maybe like a lot of Russia's oil supply, I think it's like 10 million barrels a day they supply the world. If that production goes offline, it's not like a Bitcoin miner where you can flip it back on. It's gone. And so it's not gone for the next year. It's gone for decades. And so there's some pretty big stuff happening behind the scenes. And so like, again, I'm no commodities expert. I'm not in this every day, but I've been watching the charts, and it's like, my God, something's breaking. You see volatility across commodities, equities, credit markets, foreign exchange. It's, I think it's going to intensify. There's no happy ending here over the short term.
Are you prepping?
Yeah, a little bit. I'd say like definitely going to stuff my freezer with some meat. I think it's maybe even a little late for that, but definitely financially prepping, getting my Bitcoin stack and saving some cash, as well as, I think on the food side, maybe energy as well. It's not a bad idea.
It's a real wild time for you to come like into this as a career and job. You've gone straight into the fire. Yeah,
no doubt. It's exciting. I definitely just kind of taking a step back. I think we're living through some historic times. So from that perspective, it's fascinating. I think I'm going to look back and say, wow, I was really thrown into the fire there. But we're all living through it. It's historic times. So
yeah.
So what do you think happens if commodities and fuel just keeps going up? Price controls?
Well, price controls, history tells us that's the worst idea that can happen, because ultimately it leads to massive shortages, and it disincentivizes production, because if you're not profitable, it's the price is going up not because of, like Elizabeth Warren says, of greedy corporations, but because there's just not enough supply to meet demand. So price shortages, it happened in the Great Depression. It leads to famine. It leads to catastrophes. So central planning, price controls, horrible idea. Hope policymakers don't do it, but
I bet they do.
Probably do, which is going to be tragic. But I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
France have announced that they're going to rebate petrol. They've put like a €2 billion deal in to rebate people's petrol prices.
How do they do that? How do they execute it?
I don't know.
Have a look it up, because we've also seen in massive increase in energy prices. I talked about it. One of the things, a move in house, I had to go and transition my energy suppliers. So I have to do a closeout, and I hadn't checked my. I'm supplied by Shell, I think, for gas and electric, and I hadn't checked. And I'd gone in there, and you got the monthly price, and it ranges, from summer months like maybe £60 to £80 to winter months maybe £120. The most current month when I went in was 350-ish pounds. I was like, what the fuck? It's because energy prices gone up, gas has gone up. We heat the house with gas, we cook with gas, right? Which was like a massively scary moment to go through to see that happen. And now we found out that it was announced that in Scotland they're providing grants to people, grants or subsidies to support the massive increase in energy prices. And by the way, when I was looking at those prices, that was pre-Ukraine, Russia. What you found it, Danny?
So it's introducing a rebate, 15 cents in euros per litre for transport fuel.
15 cents to $16 per litre of transport fuel to help drivers cope with soaring pump prices. Prime Minister Jean Castex, I don't know how to pronounce that, said in an interview with daily newspaper Le Parisien, the measure to apply for 4 months from April the 1st, April Fool's Day.
Huh.
Do you have April Fool's Day here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Expected to cost the government just over €2 billion, he said. Retail gasoline and diesel prices soared to record highs in many countries across the world. Yada, 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 yada.
That last sentence is interesting.
The measure, which he said...
No, sorry. Macron said his government had already spent €20 billion a year to moderate gas and power costs.
Jesus fuck. I wonder what that is, because 15 cents I mean, if you're at €2 a litre, I mean, that doesn't take it back to like when it was like 150-ish. It's only a small. I wonder if the incentive there is like the fear that people can't go to work. Is it like to keep the wheels of the economy turning?
To quell social unrest, ultimately. I mean, I think that's kind of what we're going to see in the 2020s. And we see this at the end of these kind of debt cycles, fourth turnings, is that, you know, the plebs kind of revolt. And oftentimes it gets ugly. And so the political incentives align to, you know, to, I guess, quell this unrest any way that's possible. I think one of the things we didn't even mention is that a lot of countries around the world, exporters of these commodities, are becoming kind of protectionist with their exports. You're seeing, you know, South American countries saying, we're not going to export our soybeans or our wheat or our, you know, we're going to make sure we're good first. And so there's probably a decent chance that the U.S. does that with their energy. And so what are the implications of that in the global economy if that happens? It's an if, not a when. But all of this kind of protectionism leads to even higher prices, which is where things kind of get really crazy.